Now it is my pleasure to introduce Erik Berkertz, the CEO of Clean Energy Trust, to kick off our fireside chat. And after that, I'll be back to announce our award winners. Erik?
Yeah, great, Ian. And I do want to just begin by expressing thanks to you and the CET team for pulling this all together. Everything from the initial down selection down to the summer-long Accelerator program to producing this event. It's a lot of work and it's been coming together beautifully, so thank you. Also, none of this would be possible without the support of the Wells Fargo IN2 program. So Kimberly, thank you for that. And Kathleen and Mike, thank you for Loch Lord's support, not only for today, but for supporting the organization over time. And finally, I just want to say congratulations to the teams that presented today. It really is inspiring to see you all devote your time, your intellects, your energies towards pursuing something with profit and purpose. We're going to need you. So, please stay in the game, keep up the good fight, because it's really, really important what you all are doing. So with that, let me transition. So I'm thrilled that today we have the opportunity to speak with Thomas Jonas, the co-founder and CEO of Nature's Fynd, and very innovative alternative protein company. Nature's Fynd is one of those companies that is just hiding in plain sight here in Chicago. Yet it's a company that has a potential of disrupting the food industry in a significant way, and also driving dramatic climate impact. So I'm looking forward to learning more with the conversation today with Thomas. So Thomas, welcome.
Hey, Erik, thanks for having me. Super excited to hear. Just a few words. It's very exciting to see the work being done by your group here. It is truly inspiring. So thanks to you guys for making this happen. It's as you said, it's what's needed. So I'm glad you're carrying the load here, and you guys are doing the work. We need you.
All right, well, thank you. So kind of to kick off, I mean, I've been fascinated by the story of how Nature's Fynd was conceived. It all started as a NASA funded research project focused on extreme life forms, right? So how did we go from a NASA-funded project to alternative protein company? How did that kind of journey take place?
Yeah, how does that happen? I'm wondering myself if we got there pretty often. So the company started as a research project for NASA, and the goal of the research initially was to try to figure out if NASA was going to send a probe to a moon of Saturn, somewhere on exploring the methane lakes of Titan or the geyser of Enceladus, trying to figure out what could be the organization of life there. We know life here. We really have a data point of one about organization of life, which is, arguably fairly limited. So the point was to try to figure out how life could be organized there, and because that really defines how you set up your probe and the instrumentation and where you look and how you look. So this is really what drove us to a place that doesn't quite look like planet Earth, although it is on planet Earth, and that is the acidic volcanic springs of Yellowstone. And so I think people are familiar with Yellowstone, first national park in the US. It is also the largest supervolcano on the planet. So this whole region, which is half the size of Switzerland, is really sitting under huge lava chambers. And yes, it's going to blow up at some point in time. I know there is not much we can do about it, but so far we're okay. But what's really fascinating is that you have these waters that come out of the ground and that have been heated, that went through very complex and very interesting geology. And when they come out, some of them can be very acidic, and the one that we studied, the spring we studied, had a pH equivalent to a car battery. So you don't want to fall into that. So it typically kills everything. But what's fascinating is that over many thousands of years, millions of years probably, life found a way. And microbial life form managed to not only colonize this environment, but also develop something that's very relevant to us today, which is strategies to do more with less. Strategy to use the very limited resources that were available in this barren environment to sustain themselves and to grow and develop. So it took us a few years to develop a novel fermentation technology that enabled us to cultivate this extreme organism they call extremophile. And one in particular that we discovered that is interesting for a bunch of reasons. The first one is that it's 50% protein. It's a complete protein, just like egg, dairy, milk. It's all the essential amino acids are there. It's not a picky eater, and it cannot be a picky eater because of where it's coming from, which really translating to a superior enzymatic capability. And that means it can eat a lot of cheap stuff and use that to make protein. And last but not least, it has a native filamentous texture. So kind of like muscle filaments. And this is just a naturally occurring organism. We didn't edit it. It's just the way it is. So that's why we named the company Nature's Fynd, because it was literally found in nature.
Yeah. So you analyze, you realize that it's a highly efficient source of protein. So there are now other companies in market also pursuing sort of the opportunities around alternative proteins. Is this a better source of protein than perhaps other types of alternative proteins, or is your advantage really around the process and the efficiency for creating the protein?
All of the above. So just to kind of to put things in perspective, the meat market is roughly $1.5 trillion, right? There's one thing that we all do on this planet: we all eat, and we all need protein. So this is not going to be going away anytime soon. And if you look at the size of this market, there is less than 1% of that has moved to alternative protein. If you compare, which is fascinating, if you compare with milk, the milk market, it's about 15% of the milk market in the US, which has turned from cow's milk to, whether it's oat milk or soy milk or almond milk. So you should expect a very similar move over time, in the next decade probably, which is going to create an enormous amount of an enormous market. So I think stepping back a little bit, what's important once you've assessed that is to recognize a couple of things. People want their food to taste good, and they don't want their food to taste like technology, right? It's something we and I'm French, so food needs to taste good. We don't, France would take back my passport if I deliver bad food. Right. So part of the development of the technology was actually to get to a very bland flavor. And that's actually very important because that's what enables you to get into many flavors. So we can do a lot of flavors, from a strawberry yogurt to a chicken nugget, using the same protein base. The other thing that's really important in this market is that fundamentally we should assume that it will end up being a commodity. We should get into this market even today assuming that we need to get below the price point of animal protein. So that's why that technology aspect is so important. The technology only works if it enables to deliver that. So there's a bunch of people looking at technology that will, for a lot of efficiency reasons, remain very expensive. It's not the case for ours. So we think we have a cost advantage here that will play even more over the long term and be even more relevant over the long term. And the last comment I would make on that, there might be a sense right now, there's a lot of things happening in this market. There's a lot of new products, which is true. But I think, keeping in mind what I said earlier, there's less than a fraction of the meat market that has converted to meat. saying that right now we're getting to the end game would be the equivalent of us sitting together, sometime in the 90s and saying that it was really clear that the mobile phone market was going to be owned by Nokia and Ericsson, right? So there is going to be a lot of format, a lot of new technology coming up in the next coming years, and I think it's very important that I believe that the company that will last will be the company that have a technology that they own, not just a technology that they buy from an ingredient supplier.
Right. So, when you think about, if you think about the customer profile, let's say, let's look at the meat market. Is your sense that the opportunity is with people who avoid meat today, or do you see a whole new class of consumers that are people who are really concerned about the environment and sustainability, and that's where the growth of this market will come from?
That's a very interesting point. So pure vegan are actually a fairly stable part of the population. It is raising in the younger population. It's raising pretty starkly, as a matter of fact, but it remains a small minority. But what we know from retailers is that, for instance, to name our friends at Beyond Meat, about 95% of people who buy Beyond Meat buy meat as well. So this is what this industry is really about. It's about everyone who has said in the past year, damn, I need to eat less meat. And that is really who we're dealing here with. This is really who will be carrying this industry. So this is the era of the flexitarian, which is just someone that eats meat, actually, that still enjoy animal product, but is de facto reducing meat consumption. And I think it's very easy for a lot of us to think about cutting. I mean, I'm still eating a little bit of meat from time to time, mostly for competitive purposes, to be honest. I was not particularly a vegan, but it became actually very easy to cut down on meat. And there was a lot of times I was having meat. Did I really need to have meat? What you want is something that is healthy. What you want is something that's good for you, that tastes good, and of course that's good for the planet. That last point become more and more relevant, and again, even more so for younger generations.
Yeah. So interestingly, you raised a significant amount of capital from a firm called Breakthrough Energy Ventures, which was sort of catalyzed by Bill Gates, but has a lot of other sort of prominent, wealthy people behind it. And Breakthrough Energy Ventures has been very clear and articulate, saying that they will not invest in they're looking for technologies that have the potential of reducing 0.5 gigaton of emissions annually once the technology reaches scale. So looking at Nature's Find and alternative protein, how did Breakthrough Energy Ventures get to kind of that level of comfort that what you were doing was going to have such a significant impact on sort of emissions?
So I think it's a pretty well-known fact by now that agriculture is one of the big offenders, right? When it comes to greenhouse gas emission, and above and beyond the greenhouse gas, the whole ecological impact that has further compounded effect on greenhouse gas emission is very significant, linked to agriculture. And if you look at agriculture, the key problem is going to be protein. It's going to remain protein for the decades to come, because the good news is they're going to be lipid and carbohydrate for everyone. Protein is much more complicated. And the reason fundamentally why protein is complicated is actually because 90% of the food that you put in the front of the cow goes out either in the back of the cow or through evaporation. It's just a very inefficient system. And I'm not even factoring in the fact that you have to dedicate tremendous amount of land, tremendous amount of water, It's about half of the usable land in the US. It's I mean, I'm not going to kill the audience with statistics, but it is absolutely mind-blowing, the amount of resources that we allocate to that. And the reason why we have to allocate so much resources is because it's an inefficient process. And scaling up of an inefficient process is basically making a bigger hole.
Right.
Our organism, as I mentioned, due to evolutionary pressure, became extraordinarily efficient. So what does it mean? It means that we emit about 99% less greenhouse gas than a cow. It means that we use about 90% less water. And it means that we require about 99% less land. So if you compare the amount of protein per acre that we can provide versus a cow, and that's including the fact that we are feeding our organism and sugar that's grown in field, we can do close to 800 kilogram per acre, when a cow is roughly about, a cow that would be grazing outside would be about 2 kilogram per acre. So it's a completely different paradigm.
Right, right. So yeah, no, it is fascinating. So obviously, you know, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, also Generation Investment Management, which is a firm formed by Al Gore, along with Group Danone, Archer Daniels Midland, some of, you know, very, very large, you know, both strategic investors and institutional investors. So, you know, large, I think 80 million was your most recent round of funding. And with that money, you are planting a flag very firmly sort of here in Chicago, actually in a part of the city that historically was where the stockyards were when Chicago was a big meatpacking district. How did that decision come about?
So I'd love to tell you that, you know, we thought about it and we made it happen. It was completely random. It just happened that was the building that was available right here. But we are located in the old Chicago stockyard, and literally where I'm now, which is where our headquarters and our pilot plant is being built. We used to stand a few decades ago a building in which they would be keeping something like 300,000 pigs that would then get slaughtered. So it just happened that it's here, which is very, very interesting because we're such a plug and play in the classic protein logistic chain. And our product is being transferred to be finalized into a final format, whether it's a meat or a dairy analog, at subcontractors that typically are subcontractors of the meat or of the dairy industry. So we're really a plug-in there. So what's interesting in Chicago is obviously Chicago is the historic food, capital of the food basket of America. This is where the Midwest had really and continues to have a very, very important role to play in the world of food, and so it kind of made sense to be here. But what we're excited about is here. When I say here in the middle of Chicago, we are going to be making in protein the equivalent of what you could be able to get out of about 15,000 acres of grazing land if you were to do that with cows. And this is just in our building here. So again, it's a game changer in terms of efficiency, and a lot of what matters when it comes to protein is efficiency.
Right. So I think we're probably coming up on time. One last question. Many of the people who are listening in are entrepreneurs. Obviously the student teams that presented are pursuing the entrepreneurial path. You came out of sort of a more traditional large company sort of professional background. Now you're an entrepreneur. Do you have any words of wisdom for the other folks out there who are now walking the same path that you're walking.
Yeah, beware of words of wisdom from anybody. But look, I would say a couple of things. I guess first of all, highs are highs and lows are lows. And I think anyone who is on a journey of trying to invent something new needs to be prepared for that. So today, someone is going to win and others are going to lose on this competition. And congratulations in advance to the winner. And it doesn't matter to the losers, right? And I think you just have to steel yourself for this. And what matters is continuing to push forward. The other maybe comment I would have is that, one of the things I was really excited listening to all these companies is how much they embody something I feel very strongly about, which is they are defined by why not. They are defined by the question of why not. Why couldn't it be this way? Why couldn't that work? Why isn't that possible? And I really want to commend them for that. And I want them to hold on to that and keep that. Never fall in love with the technology. That's for sure. You need to keep a cool head. But always keep asking why not, and keep asking what would have to be true then for this to work. And I think this attitude is really, I think what will make this incredibly talented group of people that presented today successful. And I saw each of them having that, and I think it's incredibly inspiring to all of us here.
Yeah. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you. We're cheering for you, and because Chicago also needs a big win. So we're hoping that you'll be one of those big winners, but no pressure. So,
Erik, we don't make small plans in Chicago, right?
Yeah, Daniel Burnham. That's right. So good.